Alright, YouTube. I've seen a lot of good videos out there of how to fall a tree, how to directionally fall it, or fall one that's already got to lean in a direction, but lots of good information. I wanted to make one that added my take on how to safely get a tree on the ground, especially when it comes to using wedges and or maybe even frozen wood. Up here in the Canadian tundra, it's cold right now, and some of the wood might be frozen. Sometimes that'll spit your wedges out. Lots of different safety things to be aware of. You'll notice right off the bat I'm wearing falling pants. Not the chap. The chaps tend to spin. If the saw hits your leg, you could spin it and you'll wind up with a bite anyway. So I'm also going to carry a pressure bandage with me. Not in the truck, not at the end of the trail. It's in my pocket if I sustain a fatal wound from my sharp saw. I want to be able to plug that hole right away and get myself out. So have a pressure bandage on you. There's a couple safety issues that I've noticed. Nobody talks about some of that stuff. Another thing too, guys, everybody wants to learn how to safely fall a tree. If you're not wearing a wool sweater and a wool hat, and maybe you don't have a red plaid underlayer, you're probably not going to be successful as a lumberjack or a timberman. So a couple things you want to get right off the bat: wool sweater, red plaid, wool hat. Let's get started on the basics of how we're going to get this tree on the ground. My goal is to get it to a sawmill, so I want to fall it so I can skid the butt out of here. Heaviest part of the tree, that's what I want to connect to drag it to my little sawmill and make some lumber. Oh, I've got something on my glasses here. Let's get started. All right, guys. One thing you definitely want to have is some exits here, especially when you're working in deeper snow. You can see there's going to be some tripping hazards, so I'm going to want to clean that up right away. I'm also want to get down as low as I can around this tree. You can see there's quite a bit of snow piled up there. That's the best part of the wood for sawmilling, so I want to get as much of the thick part of the tree into the log as I can. A couple other things we'll talk about before we get started is you're going to want to warm up your equipment. Nobody likes to just get out of bed, go for a sprint. So we're not going to do that to our power tools either. So let's get this baby fired up. We're going to warm it up. Before we get our initial cuts, we're going to clear out some areas so we have some exits if we need them. Hearing protection, guys. These are loud tools. You want to be able to protect your hearing. If you're doing this all day, you got an off-grid property, you're going to be cutting lots of wood, making lots of firewood. Cover up those ears. That stuff doesn't heal. What's that? Right, can't hear a thing out here. So let's get the ears protected. We'll get our equipment warmed up. Oh yeah, you didn't seriously think I was gonna use that old chainsaw, did you? Come on, let's go. Brakes on, brakes off. Oh, I just want to open up the area. Anything I might trip on. Brake. I'm happy with that. This tree I'm planning on falling that direction. I can evacuate at least 2 different ways. Yes, these are Gucci safety glasses. I don't know if you can see that. They are, trust me. You might have noticed I got a brake here, right? Operative. On, off. Anytime I'm walking through the forest, or, you know, I'm not doing... Hey, what's that guy doing? Speaking of doing, look at that guy. That's your Canadian snow spider. Highly venomous. Anyway, anything I'm doing, I'm using my brake, okay? That's an important piece of this equipment. Make sure you got a good operative brake. I'm gonna fire it up. I'm gonna have my brake on just in case anything kicks back or anything weird happens. So that's another safety component that I don't hear spoken about enough. Okay, when I'm gonna fall a tree, I want to look and see what's around me. I want to find an opening that I can put it through. In this case, right down there. Okay, I'm definitely going to be aware as it's falling. There's a couple smaller trees there. It's going to probably disturb those, and just make sure that nothing's falling back on you. Normally I'd wear a hard hat, but today I'm not gonna. Don't ask me why. I don't know why. A couple other components of the saw that isn't widely spoken about are these lines here. You can see that's a sight line. It happens to be purple dink you are to your bar. That's a way you can tell if your cut is lined up straight, that tree is going to fall that direction. And you can see this line here too. I'm going to be able to use that. If the saw is in the tree, I can sight my way through that, and I'll be able to drop that tree where I want, hopefully. Okay, folks. Am I yelling? Let's take these off for a second here. A couple things you're going to want at the base of the tree with you. Wedges. I usually have 3 or 4. 2 wedges go in as soon as you can get them in. If that tree were to sit back on your saw and pinch you, yeah, that's going to cause some grief. So let's get some wedges in as soon as we can. Different sizes, of course, depending on the size of the tree. We'll get these wedges in. These ones have a little bit of a grip portion for the frozen wood that I mentioned earlier, but we got our wedges, a nice heavy hatchet to fit these wedges into the tree with, so we can get that thing to fall the direction we want it. So let's get started with that undercut, and we'll clean that up and make sure this tree's going down the right way. All right, I've already talked about the importance of knowing which way our tree's gonna go. I'm gonna use those sight lines on the saw. I'm gonna be checking as I'm cutting to make sure I don't overcut. My undercut is going to come in, my wedge is going to go down. I don't want to cut down from the top because that's my saw log. I'm going to be affecting the big part of the wood there, right? So in, down. Your cuts don't have to be perfect, guys. As long as it's clean, they'll come together perfectly in the future when you get better. But let's start. Shut that off. Like I mentioned already, about 1/3 of the way in to the tree now. I'm going to line my cuts up with my sight line, and you can see that should put me right in that opening just to the side of that little guy. Okay, I'm always going to be checking. Next I'm going to take that wedge out of there. That's called my undercut. Check what's going on the other side of the tree. Okay, folks. I did mention your cuts do not need to line up perfectly. As long as once we take this wedge out, everything's clean. You'll notice I kept checking the other side of the tree too. Pretty close. Does it need to be perfect? No. But I don't want that to get too far. You can cause different issues. I'm not going to get into the technical terms right now. Now, even though my cuts didn't connect, the most important thing is to have a nice clean break there. How am I going to do that? Boom. Okay, with the hatchet I can just knock that out of there. You can see my cut came straight across there. And when I look across my cut, it's nice and clean. There's not going to be a step in there, so that when the tree falls, it's not going to lift up and maybe change the direction of the fall. Most important thing is that that line goes straight across. Nice big opening there. Okay, now we can work on our falling cut. So like I said before, remember, we're gonna have our tools at the base of the tree with us. I'm gonna make sure that I don't overcut in here. I want to leave about 1 inch of wood, depending on the size of the tree, but something like this, I want to leave about 1 inch of wood there to keep a nice hinge, and that's going to control the tree from falling to the side where I don't want it. I want it to go nice and straight. For us left-handed folk, it's nice to have this full wrap bar so I can cut from either side of the tree, and I've got lots of different grip positions. My back cut, I want above my under. I don't want it down low. I can't push this tree up. I want to hinge it over, so I'm going to be above that. This before. As soon as I can get a wedge in, 2 wedges. We don't want to hit them in too hard, we just want them to sit. Get those in right away so it can't sit back. I want to be aware of what's going on the other side, so I'm going to be checking. I don't want to cut into my hinge. I'll take you with me. Here you can see, I don't want to overcut into here. That's my holding wood or the hinge. That's going to prevent the tree from coming to the side. So I'm getting close, but I'm going to frequently check that. Always watching the tree, see what's going on. Now, the thing I want to talk about, folks, is when we're hitting our wedges. Okay, this tree's fairly healthy. I can't tell what's going on. If there's any defects, maybe there's loose branches up there. If I just start pounding these in like I'm hammering a nail, what do you think's happening to the top of that tree? Well, any defects, any rot or anything up there, I could wind up snapping that off. And if I'm not paying attention, down it goes right on top of me. So once I'm getting close to my cut, I'm really going to focus on one good hit, and then I'm going to watch. Let the tree settle down before I hit again. Still me. Another thing I've seen guys do, this is something that doesn't often get done properly, is just put the camera down here. Maybe I've gotten the tree to the point where my wedge isn't enough. All right, I've wedged the tree over and the wedge isn't gonna get it the rest of the way. So maybe I think putting 2 wedges together is a good idea. Okay, and I get that extra lift. It's not a bad idea. But what I would suggest strongly is putting something in there to prevent them from slipping. Okay, you got all this nice sawdust. So if I'm gonna stack wedges, I'm gonna put some sawdust in between them, and that gives a real good cushion of grip in there. Too hard plastic wedges isn't exactly, you haven't got the gription that you're looking for, and very often when you go to pound one, you're gonna send the other one out, and then of course the tree could sit back and cause you some grief. So if we're gonna stack wedges, guys, we're gonna put some sawdust on there and do it like that. Got it? Let's get this on the ground before it gets dark. Check the other side. I don't want to overcut that wood. Okay, this tree's ready to go. I just want to show you guys what happens when we're hitting the wedges. I'm going to keep an eye on the tree. Never look away from your tree. This thing's, it's ready to fall, but I just wanted to let you know or see how much movement there is when I hammer this wedge. Okay, that's what I was talking about. We don't want this to create a whipping action. That was a pretty lame hit. Still a lot of movement. Let's give it another good one. All right, you get the point. Okay, I'm gonna take my saw with me once this thing's ready to go. I don't want to wreck my saw, obviously, leaving it at the butt of the tree. Another thing I see a lot of, guys, is don't run. You run, you fall. You run, your back is to the tree. It's only this big. All you gotta do is be able to step one side or another. I'm gonna get out of the way in case something else falls, but keep your head up. Keep your eyes on what's moving around. Don't turn your back until everything kind of settles down, okay? All right, she's gonna go. I'm watching. There we go. That's what I was talking about. Right between those trees, it didn't get hung up, but I'm watching that stuff. That could very possibly come back on me, right? Even that stuff way in the distance is moving pretty good, but you'll see that tree went exactly where I was hoping. Whoo, timber! Go have a look at the stump and we'll talk about what we're looking at. Hey guys, I don't want to brag or anything, but it's pretty much textbook. Could have been a little higher on the one side, but you can see my undercut a little over a third, but I knew I needed to go a little deeper because this tree was already kind of had a bit of a lean. What's that? Thought I heard some activity in the canopy. Make sure everything's settled down before we get in here, right? Could be branches falling, all sorts of stuff, but here's the key points that we want. I did not overcut my hinge or holding wood. It's all the way across. I got a nice step. I'm above my undercut all the way around. Everything's nice and straight. if I had my square again, you'll see perpendicular to my face cut. Bang on, right? That's exactly where we wanted it to go, kind of between these little trees. Like I say here, you can see what that wood should look like again. Holding wood all the way across to prevent the tree from falling side to side. And you got a good step. Again, guys, my undercut, right? That first piece that we took out of the tree, I took it off the stump, right? If I'd taken it out of here, you know, you're affecting your good lumber. I'm cutting that into either a beam or a log or a bunch of 2x-whatevers. Looks like you get 2x12s out of there, right? I would have taken almost a foot out of that right away if that was part of that. So I want to take it out of the stump when possible. So that's about it. You know, textbook cut. That's that tree right where we wanted it to go. Okay, folks, hopefully that's helped you understand a little bit about directional falling, right? Again, using those sight lines to make sure that the tree's gonna go straight. Nice clean undercut, so nothing's gonna step up and push it a direction you don't want it to go or unexpected. As soon as you can get those wedges in behind, get your wedges in, prevent it from sitting back on your saw. And don't rush. Don't overcut. Check your opposite side. You know, I don't see people doing that enough. See what's going on. Hopefully you guys can safely cut some trees, and maybe in my next video we'll see what this looks like going through the sawmill. I think I got some good footage today. Yeah.